Metro Talk. I'm Kent Sheffield. Thanks for being with us. Pat Gowan, one of the editors with the Post-Dispatch, is here. Welcome, Pat.
I can't.
And Jim Schrader, the publisher of the Telegraph, is alongside as well. Welcome, Jim.
Hi, guys.
Pat, Governor Quinn has given his annual budget speech. Any surprises there?
Well, I think what he did was effectively stand in front of the joint session and go, I mean, we're to the point where there really isn't much to discuss. He's talking about Medicaid reforms. He's talking about pension reforms. He's talking about closing corporate tax loopholes. He's talking about doing all of that down the line with the legislature because he's not really proposing much by way of specifics. He is talking about closing about 60 state facilities. They would include the prisons, the Supermax at Tams and the women's prison at Dwight, incorporating them elsewhere, a couple centers for the developmentally disabled. I think altogether about 60 state facilities, about 750 workers would lose their jobs, 1% more for education, but about 9% less for everything else. It's draconian, a very difficult budget address. I think politically he managed it well. He didn't gild any lilies, not that he had any gild left to paint them with, but it was realistic, it was honest. I don't think there was a lot of criticism about it, really not a lot of substantive criticism, because I think the guy just was stuck doing what he had to do, which is to say the economy hasn't come back, the state is still in a heck of a mess, and we're going to have to tread water until it comes back, and we've got to get together and decide how to do that.
Jim, any surprises in Governor Quinn's budget speech?
I think the surprise was the candor. Basically admitting we got a problem. Last year it was more kind of smoke and mirrors and we're going to do this and we're going to do that and we're going to right the ship. And this year was more like, gosh, I don't know, what are we going to do now? There was a certain amount of kicking the can down the road, I guess. We have discussed many times, and everybody is pretty well fluent on the fact that the pension mess is what's really causing the state the biggest problems. Rather than a straightforward, this is how we want to deal with this, the governor's solution was appointing a committee to study it, and we all know what happens anytime a committee studies something. They sit around for several meetings and are compensated well for such, and the ultimate comeback is, dunno. I don't know how the state is ever going to get out of the pension mess without some type of change in the go forward, the way we calculate pensions. Most private businesses have gone to something other than a fixed pension benefit, 401k, some type of a 401b, some type of a plan where the employee makes a contribution and the employer either does a partial match or some match, as opposed to a fixed benefit where if you work so many years and you reach a certain age, it's a certain percentage of your salary as you retire. That I think is right now sitting at about $85 billion in unfunded liabilities for the state. Those were wonderful things when most people worked until they were 62 or 65 and didn't have a real long life expectancy after that. The way state governments work, somebody can retire at 50 from their first job and go out and get a second state job and continue to add to their pension liability, and the state just can't afford it. I think the difference in this Quinn's speech this year was he admitted we got a problem. No Pollyanna, pie in the sky, lollipops and moonbeams here. We got a problem, and we're going to propose some pretty drastic things to get them in line. Whose ox gets gored is always a problem. And in our particular case, our sister publication, the Jacksonville Journal-Courier, the Jacksonville Juvenile Detention Center there, is one of the organizations that's slated for closure. As you can imagine, that's several jobs in the Jacksonville area, and it's also a facility that performs a very necessary service to its constituents, to members of the less fortunate. But what do? We had a discussion in the newsroom the other day after some strange phone calls and emails from someone that probably in years past would have been living at the mental health facility out on 140. This person admitted they had been there at one point in time, and that facility now only really houses criminally, mentally challenged people. Others have been basically put out on the street to fend for themselves. That's scary. I don't know how we're ultimately going to balance this budget. Some of the suggestions are to put, like teachers' pensions back on the local school districts, which all that does is shift the responsibility right back to the taxpayer, but it's in a different pot of money. So that's kind of smoke and mirrors. I would want to be Governor Quinn, trying to paint this as in the best light that he can, but I think he was pretty straightforward.
I think he's also essentially saying, don't put it all on me. The legislature has essentially stood back and let him try to take the leadership role without giving him a lot of support over the past recent years. This is like a car. In the front seat there are 3 drivers. You got the governor and the Senate and the House. You've got 3 steering wheels, and they're all connected. So as they steer, they're steering against each other, and I think for the past couple of years, the House and the Senate have taken their hands off the wheel as the car careens toward the ditch, and they said, you drive, and the governor's been the only one steering. I think with his relative lack of specifics about a lot of the solutions for the big ticket items, he's essentially saying it's no longer all on me, you're not letting me lead, you guys are going to have to be part of the equation too. And it'll be interesting to watch in the coming months the extent to which the House and the Senate step up to a greater leadership role along with him in trying to steer our way out of this.
Was it a smart move on his part to say we're going to cut every department 9%? Because it really forces the hand of the others,
Well,
doesn't
and
it?
he's got to say something. He's got to illustrate the depth of the problem. Now, maybe it won't turn out to have been that, but if what he's got to accomplish is the equivalent of that, it's got to open everybody's eyes. 9% is a whole lot of money. When you put this in common terms, if you look at the unfunded pension liability, here's another way to say it. Here's how we fix it this year. Here would be real leadership. Everybody in Illinois, send me $7,000 for everybody in your household. $7,000, everybody in the state, send that one time. You only got to do it one time, we fix the pension problem. $7,000 for every man, woman, and child gets you about $84 billion, and that'll do it.
You've got a big future in politics.
When you look at it that way, if you reduce it to the honest terms, which is sort of what the 9% is doing, it gives you a staggering look at the breadth of the problem.
My check's in the mail. I'll mail it during the break.
7,000, not $7.
Oh, I'm sorry. I moved that decimal point, didn't I?
We need to take a break. We'll have more right after this.
Hello and welcome to the Lewis and Clark Minute. Today we're going to check out the music program with Dr. Teresa Crane.
Have you always wanted to learn how to play the piano? Maybe you wanted to learn Beethoven's Für Elise. Or maybe you like a more popular style like Jim Brickman. Or maybe you like jazzy blues. You can learn all this and more right here at Lewis and Clark Community College.
This has been your Lewis and Clark Minute.
When you open a book, you can explore new lands, make new friends, and discover new adventures. There are amazing possibilities when you open your mind to reading. Explore new worlds. Read.
60-inch screen, high definition. Football season is coming up. You can watch it right here. What do you think?
I'll take it.
Huh? Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
You're right. I don't need it.
This is Metro Talk. I'm Kent Shuffle. Pat Gowan and Jim Schrader are alongside. Jim, we've been talking about the state's budget issues, the governor's budget address. One of the things he's also proposed is cutting the insurance benefits for current retirees. Is it fair to cut the benefits for someone who's already retired, or should we be doing that in order to get the state's financial house back in order?
There have been, again, in the private sector, there have been lots of lawsuits over just this type of thing, where at the time of retirement, a certain group of people were told that you'll either get your insurance covered, your medical insurance covered, or at a reduced rate from now on. And as those premiums have continued to decline, it's another one of those things that was good once upon a time. I don't know how, or I don't know that the state can, let's rephrase that. I don't know that the state can go back now and say, never mind, that was a promise that was made, that was a contract that was written at the time you left. I know that's something that would certainly reduce the state's expense. I'm not a retired teacher, but I know how I would feel, and I know how others have felt that have had similar situations where they retired from a certain company after years and years of employment and been told that their medical coverage is going to change, and then all of a sudden they're saying, okay, as of 2013, that's not going to happen anymore. Go out and find yourself some insurance coverage that you can afford. And I have known lots of people that has happened to. Again, the right thing to do would be change that now for people that retire later on and figure out somehow to continue the coverage for people that retired with that as a benefit. Again, I don't know that the state can afford it, but that would be the right and moral thing to do.
Pat, Governor Quinn is saying that maybe the state needs to stop paying health insurance for retired teachers. Is that a fair thing to do, or should we be doing that because we've got to balance the budget somehow?
Well, I think it's fine, and as long as they resume it in time for my wife, the public school teacher, when she retires. It's a moral contract, of course, maybe even a legal contract, as Jim points out. These people were told something on which they based their planning for their futures. They were told something on which they based their negotiations for pay, saying, well, maybe we don't make as much as we could in other areas, but when we retire, we'll be well taken care of. And he's promised that they would be, and now maybe they won't be. Some of these people are spending hundreds of dollars a month already for insurance coverage. The state proposes to cut $87 million on subsidies to about 71,500 people. If you divide that out, it's about $100 a month per person that would be added to people on a fixed income who are already spending some hundreds of dollars a month for coverage. All that having been said, the state has made many promises to many categories of people, and there is not enough money to fulfill all those promises. Whether you're talking about employees or people who are in prison systems, or you're talking about people who are getting care for the developmentally disabled, there are a lot of folks with straws in this pot, and they were told they could drink as much as they need, and there's just not enough in there anymore. And somehow that's got to be reconciled, and that is at the heart of the difficulty we've got. It's the idea that we don't have to raise taxes because we've got a huge amount of waste and we don't have to cut serious programs. I think it's become folly. It isn't. We're cutting muscle. We may still be cutting some fat in some areas, but we're cutting muscle, and we've got to decide which muscle to cut or increase the taxes some more. And I'm not saying that increasing the taxes more is a great idea at all. I look back when Bill Brady was running for the governor against Quinn in 2010. Brady said this can all be fixed without a tax increase at all. We have now increased income taxes 66.6%, and we're still having these kinds of problems. I don't know what we would have done without that income tax increase.
And where's Brady?
Well, still in the state senate.
Yeah, I mean, if Brady's got such a good plan, what? How about coughing it up? You know?
Yeah, But I think what it shows is on the parts of some people, then and even yet now, I think a lack of realization of the depth of the problem and how many good people are in line to be hurt by whatever happens. When you're delaying payments to the pharmacy that has to lay off the clerk because they can't afford, I mean, this has repercussions everywhere across the state. And I don't have a good answer for it. You won't find me running for governor. I don't know why anybody in his right mind would want to be governor or legislator or anything in this kind of environment. But this is just a small example, and we can continue, and we do in this show sometimes, continue to shine the spotlight from example to example of people who are being hurt by these things, and this happens to be the group du jour.
Jim, legislation has been introduced that would make it impossible for employers to require job applicants to give them access to social networks. Some of the employers would like to see what those potential employees are saying. Should that access be granted? Should employers be blocked from seeing what potential employees are writing?
As an employer, I say no. And I understand that we have freedom of speech and we can say, in theory, what we want to. But there are always ramifications thereof. You know, if I have an employee of the Telegraph and they're going on their Facebook page or their Twitter account or whatever and trashing management or the publisher, that sends a message to anybody who sees that out there. And I guess my first question would be, then why do you want to be here if you hate where you are so badly? But that's one of those things that would reflect badly if a reporter for the Post-Dispatch is trashing the publication or trashing Lee Enterprises. That's going to send a message to readers, to potential advertisers, to government officials, whoever happens to see those feeds, about a disgruntled employee. I can tell you that most employers now, if we're interviewing Kent Scheffel for a position, one of the first things we do is Google your name and see if it comes up. We'll put your name into Facebook. We'll go into, we do background checks, we do drug tests. It would seem to me that if that's part of the prerequisites to being considered for hire, you can say, no, I don't want to do that, or yes, I do, and I've got nothing to hide. We have a disclosure agreement that all employees have to sign that basically says that we, the employer, or Freedom Communications, can go in and especially, or anything on a work computer is subject to search. It's not private property, so if someone's silly enough to be doing it on company time on a company computer, they're really strange. But if it's one of those things that if the employee wants the job badly enough, they'll say, go ahead, take a look.
Pat, legislation has been introduced that would block employers from looking at the comments that potential employees are making in social networks. Should that legislation go through? Should that possibility be blocked?
I don't think this bill is intended to stop an employer from seeing what is publicly available. I think you'd still be able to Google people, you'd still be able to look them up on Facebook. What this bill by LaShawn Ford, a Democrat from Chicago, what this bill does more directly is it says, you can't demand my password to see what I'm saying privately to a group of my friends on a social network site. Not what's publicly available, but you essentially want access to my inner sanctum. I don't know that that's functionally different from 50 years ago saying, okay, I need you to have all your friends send us copies of the correspondence that you have sent them, the letters you've sent them. I mean, something like that. This is material that was intended for limited private consumption. And I think that's where one of the fears is, that the sort of invasion of privacy issue would come if they say, hand us the keys to your private accounts so that we can look in there and see. I mean, I don't know if it would include, I presume it would, to give us a password to your email, your personal email, and let's see what kind of emails you send to your friends about things. I think there ought to be a line drawn somewhere, and I think this bill is in recognition of trying to draw that kind of line, which I don't think is unfair if it excludes employers not from what the public persona is, but from what the private persona is on a social network.
We need to take another break. We'll have more Metro Talk after this.
Hello and welcome to the Lewis and Clark Minute. Today we're going to check out the radio broadcasting program in WLCA with Mike Lemons.
Have you ever listened to your favorite radio station or your favorite disc jockey and say, you know, I could do that? Or maybe you're the type of person who says, I could never do something like that. Well, with the help of first-year Mass Comm student John, we're going to show you just how easy it is. Each voice intro starts with talking about the band that just played, and we add a station identifier. Next, you want to offer some information that may be of interest to your audience. And finally, tell the listeners what the next song is, who sings it, followed by another station identifier. John will do one live now.
Silver Sun Pickup Substitution on WLCA. The Big Pink released their debut album called A Brief History of Love. The single is off that album. It's The Big Pink with Dominoes. It's on College Radio's Best 89.9.
This has been your Lewis and Clark Minute.
What's that? I don't know. Something I kind of made. Ooh, what's it do?
What do I do? Well, thanks for asking. I ring my bell and I like to dance. What do I do? Well, thanks for asking.
Ow! Yeah, it still needs a little work.
Anything's possible. Keep thinking. Get started on your own inventions or just play some games at inventnow.org.
Sounds like you could use some Van Gogurt. It's fortified with arts-rich nutrients to improve your math and reading skills. Catch!
Van Gogurt, thanks. So what's the deal with your ear?
Always with the ear, huh?
Feed your kids the arts. For 10 simple ways to learn how, visit AmericansForTheArts.org.
You're watching Metro Talk. Jim Schrader and Pat Gowan are here. I'm Kent Scheffel. Pat, the Illinois State Board of Education is going to seek a waiver to the No Child Left Behind guidelines. Should the state be seeking a waiver for that?
Well, there are 11 states that have them, 28 others, including Illinois, which have applied for them. It doesn't necessarily mean that there will be no standards. It doesn't mean there's no accountability or expectation of progress, but it relieves them of what many believe are some of the unrealistic portions of No Child Left Behind, the idea that everybody in every school has got to show constant progress time and time again, or face consequences that range from forcing you to provide extra tutoring to eventually paying the tuition for them to go to some other school. Since the majority of schools in Illinois are failing No Child Left Behind, and I think that's probably true as a nationwide thing, it's kind of funny in a way. Ultimately, the parent can force my school to pay tuition to go to your failing school because my school is failing, and maybe your failing kids can come to my failing school, and everybody can trade at higher cost than they were paying before. A lot of people in education, and I think a lot of thinking people saw No Child Left Behind as idiocy from the beginning, that the premise was bad. I used to joke, the idea is that all children would be above average by 2014. Now, it doesn't really say that, but it sort of implies that. Just as nobody in their right mind would not want the children to excel and do the best they can for them educationally, give them every opportunity and all those things, every reasonable person would do that. But I think any reasonable person would see that this was a flawed path to get there. This allows the Obama administration to give them waivers to substitute other methods of testing and accountability, hold them to less stringent standards, until such a time as the law is either replaced or until the tenets of the law are modified. So I think it's perfectly reasonable. I also think it's inevitable. I think from day one of No Child Left Behind, anybody who looked at what it was about would have foreseen the day when this would be necessary, short of either a collapse of our education system or putting so much money into it that there wasn't money for anything else.
Jim, does it make sense for the state to get a waiver to the No Child Left Behind guidelines?
Well, it is a waiver from No Child Left Behind, but there has to be a plan in place to show basically continuous improvement. As Pat pointed out, there's 11 states that have already gotten a waiver, 28 more that are looking for it. They have to file a plan that basically says we're going to hold the teachers accountable, we're going to hold the students accountable. They still have to show some type of a progress. This is not just a pass that we let Johnny sit in class and color. They still are going to have some steps that they have to show are improvement. It may not be the same steps that would be required by No Child Left Behind. If you talk to teachers and administrators, they will tell you just exactly what Pat said, that this has been flawed from the beginning. You have teachers that are pre-testing basically on the NLCB tests. They teach to the test, so they're trying to show improvement. It reflects badly on the teacher. It does not reflect badly on a student if they don't show improvement. It doesn't reflect badly on the home life. It's all back on the teacher or the administration. I think NLCB probably, or NCLB, excuse me, probably needs to be tossed and replaced with something else. But that doesn't mean that we just give up on our young people and say there aren't any standards at all.
And tailoring the plan to the locality makes perfectly good sense too. There's such inconsistency. Your problem might be that you have an outsized number of special education students. Or you may have a problem that you have a large number of non-English speaking or English as second or third language students. And the expectations and the ways to deal with those expectations would necessarily be different depending upon socioeconomic status and language and variables. No two districts in the country are going to be exactly the same. And the cookie cutter approach of NCLB, I think, was obviously flawed from the start, if for no other reason because it did hold everybody to the same set of standards when we were a diverse country of diverse situations, diverse needs.
Pat, Congressman Jerry Costello is going to be leaving office soon. He's got $2.3 million in his campaign funds. Can we expect him to have a big influence on politics in the future as a result of all that cash and those funds?
Well, he might have $2.3 million worth, which is less than it used to be, depending upon where you want to put your influence. You know, $2.3 million disappears in the blink of an eye in a state governor's race or Senate race if you were choosing to put his money there. My guess is he'll spread it out among a number of candidates, probably primarily local candidates. And Costello will continue to have influence on a number of fronts. And it won't be just the money. I mean, the guy's been in Congress for,
23 years.
23 years. It'll be 24 years by the time he's out. He's amassed a lot of goodwill. He came from a political background in St. Clair County. He's well known. He's well respected. So I think he's going to be sort of the patriarch of Southwestern Illinois politics for some time to come.
We will know Jerry long after he steps down from Congress. He's going to be around for a long time.
Put it in his son's campaign fund, maybe. Huh?
Absolutely.
That's going to do it for this round of Metro Talk. Thanks for being with us. I'm Kent Scheffel. Pat Gowan from the Post-Dispatch has been here, along with Jim Schrader from the Telegraph. We'll see you next time.